Continuing on with the Bible Acts, please continue where we left off last time, line for line, word for word.
Acts 8, verse 39. And when they were come up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord caught away Philip, that the eunuch saw him no more, and he went on his way rejoicing.
Now wait, could you repeat the last verse just to make sure that we're on the same point?
Acts 8, verse 39. And when they were come up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord caught away Philip, that the eunuch saw him no more, and he went on his way rejoicing.
Okay, summary?
The Holy Spirit snatches Philip right out, like teleport. Eunuch's alone, but super happy, keeps driving south, spreading the news. First African Christian, probably. Ready for 40?
So that's just like an interesting kind of story, because then that story has sprouted a lot of different stories in the region. Is that true? Because you would think that'd be something that people would kind of pick up on, no?
Yeah, Ethiopia's had a Christian kingdom since the 4th century. They say that eunuch, his name's never given, went home, preached, and boom. Coptic church, oldest in Africa. Still running. No accident. God didn't zap Philip just to show off. He planted. Ready for 40? Acts 8, verse 40. But
Well,
Philip was found.
give me Bible references first.
1 Kings 18. Elijah caught up by a whirlwind. 2 Kings 2. Elisha sees Elijah vanish into heaven. Ezekiel 3:12. Spirit lifts Ezekiel up like wind. Philip snatch. Same move. Physical, visible, no explanation, just gone. Ready? Acts 8, verse 40. But Philip was found at Azotus, and passing through he preached in all the cities, till he came to Caesarea.
Summary?
Philip reappears 50 miles away, Azotus, then walks north, preaching through every town up to Caesarea. Keeps the job going, solo. Ready for chapter 9?
So I'm just thinking this is a kind of interesting thing that basically the idea here is God's just basically zapping Philip from place to place. So, and I'm wondering, I don't know. So that's basically the idea, huh?
Yeah, God's not driving him. He's relocating him. Philip finishes the job, then boom, airlifted. No walking, no horse, no time wasted. It's like divine fast forward. Why? Probably to keep him moving. Don't settle, keep spreading. And notice, he shows up in a Gentile city next, Caesarea. This is mission expansion. Ready for chapter 9?
Now, it's interesting because there hasn't really been that kind of thing. A lot of crazy stuff happening in the Old Testament, but not really like, you're kind of beamed to one place to the other kind of thing, huh? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, you're wrong. Just not in the flashy way. Old Testament's full of this. Elijah, gone in a chariot of fire. Elisha, watches it, inherits the mantle. Ezekiel, Spirit picks him up like wind, drops him miles away. Even Philip's echo of that. Not for show, for work. It's rare, but when God does it, it's never random. Ready for Acts 9, verse 1?
Let's give me those examples again. Give me the references on those. Maybe what I'm thinking is the purpose different, because obviously the purpose here seems to be that he's gonna spread the word in different locations, whereas the purpose on the when Elijah. Well, anyways, give me the references.
Elijah, 2 Kings 2:11. Chariot of fire, whirlwind, poof, taken up. Elisha sees it, gets double the Spirit, starts miracles. Not for travel, for succession. Ezekiel 3:12. Spirit lifts him up from Babylon to the exiles in Tel Aviv, literally airlifted to preach judgment. Again, not sightseeing, mission. Even Moses, Exodus 3, burning bush. God calls him from Midian back to Egypt. Same vibe, relocation for work. Philip's no different, just faster. Ready for Acts 9, verse 1.
But wait a sec. When God called relocation from the bush, it doesn't say that he was basically beamed over there, does it? I mean,
No, it says he went back, walking, sheep in hand, staff. No beaming. The Old Testament usually keeps it grounded. walking, donkey, camel. The zapping is rare, mostly for prophets, when time is zero or the message is too big for feet. Philip's is flashy, because the Spirit wants to show. Geography's nothing. God can drop a nobody in a throne room. But yeah, Moses walked. Philip vanished. Different style, same point. Go where I send. Ready? Acts 9, verse
Okay, hold
1.
on a second. Hold on a second. Okay, let's continue.
Acts 9, verse 3. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. Acts 9, verse 4. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Acts 9, verse 5. And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. Acts 9, verse 6. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do.
Okay, summary.
Saul's on the road to Damascus to arrest Christians. Bam! Light blasts. He hits dirt. Here's Jesus. Why are you fighting me? He asks. Who? Jesus. It's me. Saul. What now? Jesus. Go in. You'll find out. Blind 3 days. Ready for 7.
Now, did Saul? I always say it like I knew a Saul. I always say it's Saul, but for some that's Spanish, right? Saul. Anyway, did they ever really like debate each other in person, Jesus and Saul, or no?
No. They never met on earth. Jesus dies, gets buried, rises, ascends, long before Saul gets on the scene. Saul's whole beef with Christianity starts after. He's never heard Jesus preach, never touched his hand. That's the shock. This voice knows his name, calls out his heart, and it's the guy he's trying to erase. No debate, no handshake, just light and regret.
So where was Saul during the whole thing, Jesus's whole lifetime? Because Jesus spent some time, in the temple, learning and stuff, right? So where was Saul?
In Tarsus, most of the time. A Roman university town, 300 miles north. He studied under Gamaliel in Jerusalem once or twice, maybe overlapped with Jesus once or twice, on a festival trip. But he was a kid. Jesus was a carpenter. Saul was memorizing Torah. Zero interaction. Jesus never mentions him.
What was the age? What was the age? Were they the same age?
No, not even close. Jesus was about 30 when he started ministry, crucified at 33. Saul, Paul, was younger. Most scholars say he was born within 5 years after Jesus, maybe 10. So when Jesus dies, Paul's in his early 20s, still in rabbinical school, not even licensed to teach, not yet the hunter. He catches up later, after the resurrection. Then the two finally meet, one alive, one dead. Age difference? 8-10 years.
So he's got a lot of young ideological vigor to him. He's a young, promising young scholar.
Yeah, like a star quarterback or a young lawyer who thinks he knows everything. But instead of touchdowns, he's making lists. Names to arrest, houses to raid, letters to Damascus. He's not some old crank. He's the future. He's the one they'll send when the old rabbis die. And that's why the light hits so hard. He's not just wrong. He's gifted, and he's hunting the wrong thing. Ready for verse 7?
Yeah, talent has to be directed in the right spot, or else it actually harms more than hurts or helps. Right? So that means that he has actual communication with Jesus, but we don't have the same corporeal situation. It's just the voice, unlike resurrection when they see it corporeal.
Yeah, exactly. No body, just light, and a voice, and the dirt. That's why he doesn't hallucinate it. His companions hear thunder, but not the words. They see the light, but Paul gets the sentence, "Why persecute me?" That's not ghost, that's authority. And talent? Like a knife. Wrong hand, murder. Right hand, surgeon. God flips the grip. Ready?
Well,
Acts
wait a
9.
sec. One more thing. So this, if you think about this as from just like an evidence standpoint, now you have another situation where somebody has communicated with Jesus beyond death. Jesus clearly making claims of, divinity and whatnot, and at the least, obviously, afterlife and whatnot, validating his earthly claims. But it's not a corporeal thing, so it's not going to be as strong as some other claims in that sense. And because he never knew Jesus, then it's a little bit more difficult to say, well, he could say that who Jesus said he was, but he can't really confirm it based on firsthand knowledge because you're saying he's never actually communicated with Jesus in life.
Yeah, but that's why the story works. He's never met him alive. No bias, no grudge. If he were a disciple, he'd have motive to lie. But Saul, he's the enemy. He's breathing slaughter. So when he hears the voice, sees the light, goes blind, it's not memory, it's invasion. And he doesn't say, "Oh, I see Jesus now." I say, "Who art thou?" Total stranger. And Jesus says, "Me, the one you're killing." It's not confirmation of old stories. It's creation of a new witness, one with zero skin in the game. That makes it stronger, not weaker.
Yeah. So from that perspective, so it's kind of like covering a different angle, right? So he can't really, like, if it was someone who was sympathetic to the story, or if it was someone who wasn't a super scholar and whatnot, then it might be a weaker claim because they'll just say, well, you're just hallucinating or whatever, or you want that to be the case because you want attention or this or that or whatever. But you're saying that his claim, on the other hand, is more powerful clearly because he was a persecutor, which you can clearly see from the beginning of the narrative with the stoning and whatnot. So he's ready to go after with deadly intent, possibly, if he feels that that's the right course. And he's clearly doing that not out of greed, but we've established out of what he thinks is the right thing to do. So then his conversion from that perspective would be a tremendous amount of evidence. Yeah. Okay. So it's like a different angle, which is good, evidence wise. Okay. So okay.
Yeah, it's not a friend saying, "I saw him." It's the enemy saying, "He saw me and broke me and changed me." No better witness. Ready? Acts 9, verse 7. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man.
Summary.
His buddies freeze. They hear sound, but see nothing. So it's not just Saul. Something really happened. Ready for 8.
So now we're saying, just from the perspective, we would say, well, now you've got other people there who are kind of like witnesses, right? And they're going to see a change in Saul, and they're going to see and they say that they heard something, but they didn't hear the speaking itself. So that would be something that would be difficult to, like, I guess, make up, or to kind of preliminarily plan or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. They can't deny something happened. They heard a voice, saw the light, watched Saul collapse. They don't understand it, but they saw it. So later, when Paul preaches, they can't say, "Oh, we were all drunk." No, everyone remembers the flash. They just don't get the message. That's the genius. The event is public. The meaning is personal. Only Saul hears, "Why persecutest thou me?" Only Saul sees Jesus. Ready for 8?
Give me the
Acts 9.
references first.
1 Kings 19:12. Elijah hears a still small voice. Literally thin silence. Not thunder, not words, just sound. Daniel 10:7. Companions see no man, but hear a voice. Great voice, no words. 2 Corinthians 12:4. Paul himself later describes being caught up into paradise, hearing unspeakable words. These set the pattern. Companions witness an event, but only the prophet hears the message. Ready for verse 8?
So this lines up pretty well to like the general constructs of the Old Testament then, correct?
Yeah, it's the exact pattern. Old Testament guys get visions. Companions see the flash, hear rumble, feel terror, but don't get the briefing. Like Daniel's friends, they faint at the angel, Daniel stands up. Same here. Saul's the new prophet. The others, props. Ready? Acts 9, verse 8. And Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus.
Summary.
Saul gets up, blind. His friends have to lead him into town, like he's a baby. No vision, just darkness. Ready for verse 9.
References.
Isaiah 42:7. The servant to open blind eyes, foreshadowing Paul's own blindness. Isaiah 29:10. He hath closed your eyes. God blinds prophets to humble them. Genesis 27:1. Isaac could not see, led by the hand to receive truth. Same idea. Darkness first, then light. Ready?
So again, this is pretty clearly echoing the Old Testament. Now, would you think that obviously this pattern that comes about by the person writing the book, because you would think, again, Matthew was the one that was really writing possibly to make the argument to the Jewish community, right? Because he was really meticulous about getting the narrative to line up and whatnot, and explaining it in that light, whereas John, not quite as much on it. And you would think at this point in time, maybe they would be not as like focused on the Jewish community as focused on spreading the word outside, although they're still talking to people that are, connected to the Jewish community. So do you think the narrative author is still very concerned to tie everything in with the tradition of the Old Testament, possibly like they're making an argument to other Jewish people, or do you think there might be more going like that's not as important because we're moving to the more Gentile area?
Luke Acts author isn't Matthew, but he's every bit as deliberate. Matthew wrote to Jews, Luke to a Gentile doctor, Theophilus, but he grew up Jewish, speaks Greek like a Roman, thinks Hebrew, so he keeps the echoes on purpose. Not to sell to Jews, they're already hearing this in synagogues, but to show Gentiles, this isn't a new cult, it's the plot twist God planned all along. The blindness, the voice, the leading, those aren't Easter eggs for rabbis, they're signposts. Look, Elijah did this, Ezekiel did this, now Paul. So even if you're Greek, you get, this is bigger than Rome, bigger than Athens, it's history, not hype. So yes, he's tying it back, but not to win Jews over, to convince outsiders that Jews weren't making it up. Ready for 9?
Yeah, line for line.
Acts 9, verse 9. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink.
Summary.
3 days, darkness, hunger, no water, blind and breaking. Ready for 10?
References.
Jonah 1:17, Jonah and the fish, 3 days and 3 nights. Hosea 6:2, after 2 days he will revive us. In the third day he will raise us up. Jesus in Matthew 12:40, so shall the Son of Man be, 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Blindness, Isaiah 6:10, lest at any time they should see and hear and be converted. Same pattern, darkness before dawn. Ready for 10?
Yeah, line for line.
Acts 9, verse 10. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus, named Ananias, and to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Behold, I am here, Lord.
Summary.
God talks to a local believer, Ananias, in a dream. Ananias. And he answers like Samuel, Here I am. Ready for 11.
References.
1 Samuel 3:4. God calls Samuel. He says, Here am I. Acts 22:12. Paul later calls Ananias a devout man, according to the law. having a good report of all the Jews. Same setup, ordinary guy, clear vision, instant obedience. Ready for verse 11?
Yes, line for line.
Acts 9, verse 11. And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth.
Summary.
God tells Ananias, Go find Saul at Judas's place on Straight Street. He's praying. Ready for 12.
References.
No direct Old Testament verse, just a play on Acts 22:12, where Paul repeats this story. But the name Straight Street is real. Damascus geography, mentioned in Roman histories too. God's giving GPS in a vision, not symbolism. Ready for verse 12?
Does the word straight have any kind of meaning? It's a
Probably
straight road.
In Greek, straight just means right or direct. But yeah, it's symbolic. The straight path, the way that's not crooked. Paul's about to walk it. Ready? Acts 9, verse 12. And hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight.
Summary.
God chose Saul. In his blindness, he'll be healed by Ananias laying hands on him. Ready for 13.
References.
No direct Old Testament reference, but Isaiah 35:5. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened. Zechariah 1:8. Zechariah saw by night in vision. Echoes Saul's dark prayer. The vision within a vision is rare, only in Acts and Revelation. Paul later repeats this in Acts 22:14. The God of our fathers chose thee, that thou shouldest hear the voice of his mouth. Same pattern. God blinds, then reveals. Ready for 13?
Now it sounds like it's kind of like Ananias is kind of somewhat of a random dude that they just kind of pulled out. You know what I mean? Because most of the people that are curing people have a bit longer of a narrative before they start doing that. Is that right, or maybe not?
Yeah, Ananias is basically a nobody. Not an apostle, not even a deacon like Philip. Just a certain disciple in Damascus. No backstory, no miracles, no named from Jesus until now. That's the point. God's not using stars. He's using the quiet guy who's been faithful for months, maybe years, praying alone. No fanfare, just go. Because if Ananias had a resume, people would say, he's special. Instead, they'll say, what? Him? Then it really is God. Same reason Jesus used fishermen. Ready? Acts 9, verse 13. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man how much evil he hath done to thy saints at Jerusalem.
Summary.
Ananias pushes back. Lord, are you sure? This Saul, he's killed your people. Ready for 14.
Yeah, give me references.
Acts 7:58. Saul's at the stoning of Stephen. Acts 8:1. Saul consented unto his death. Acts 8:3. He made havoc of the church. Acts 9:1. Breathing out threatenings and slaughter. Galatians 1:13. Paul later says, beyond measure, I persecuted the church. Even Romans knew his rep. Word spread fast. Ananias isn't exaggerating. Ready for 14?
Yeah, so he knows the backstory of this guy, so it seems kind of odd to be helping him out, you would think.
Yeah, exactly why he hesitates. Ananias isn't doubting God. He's thinking, this makes no sense. You want me to touch the guy who touched my friends? The guy who breathed murder? That's like sending a lamb to pat the wolf. But God doesn't say, trust me. He says, go. And notice, Ananias doesn't argue long. He just says what any normal person would think. God's using that, honest fear, real faith. Ready? Acts 9, verse 14. And here he hath authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name.
Summary.
Ananias says, and now he's here with legal papers to lock us all up. Basically, this guy's not just evil. He's got a warrant.
References.
Acts 9:2, the exact letters to the synagogues for arrests. Acts 9:21, later, the Jews say, this is he that destroyed them who called on this name in Jerusalem. Acts 22:5, Paul himself confirms, I received letters to bring them bound to Jerusalem. No exaggeration, Saul was the FBI of early Christianity. Ready for 15.
Line for line.
Acts 9, verse 15. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles, and kings, and the children of Israel. Acts 9, verse 16. For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake.
Summary.
God says, Don't worry, he's my guy now. I'll use him for Gentiles, kings, even Jews. And yeah, he's going to suffer for it. A lot.
References.
Isaiah 49:6. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles. Isaiah 63. The Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. I ordained thee a prophet unto the Gentiles. Acts 9:15 is straight from that. Paul is the new Jeremiah, but worse. Suffering guaranteed. Ready for 17?
What's the story? Is there a parallel story? I can't that of a turning of the heart like this, where basically you have, a sinner to righteous, or someone who's just wrong, I guess, be to be to going the right way, and so on and so on.
Yeah, David. 2 Samuel 12. Prophet Nathan walks in, tells him a parable about a rich man stealing a poor man's lamb. David explodes. That man shall die. Then Nathan says, You are the man. Adultery, murder, cover-up. Bam. And he doesn't argue. He says, I have sinned. Same arc. Fury, confrontation, collapse, confession. No 3 days blind, just instant shame. But the turn? Same engine. Someone outside the story holds up a mirror. God doesn't debate. He just shows. And the strong man melts. Ready? Acts 9,
Like I'm thinking like later on people like this story because it's a redemption story, right? I mean, so people like an Augustus, for example, if I have my people correct, sometimes I get mixed up. But I think he was kind of, a little bit more wild as a younger man, and then he has kind of like a redemption story, or like a Buddha, type story, and then he finds some kind of enlightenment, or God, and then that's a typical story, but it's really more of a, because like David obviously was brought up to be, he was like the guy from the start, and then he messed up, so that's kind of a different story. Like you've got potential, you're going in the right direction, and then you go in the wrong direction, and then you turn back around, as opposed to, you've been going the wrong way for a long, you've spent, the first part of your life has been took a pretty bad wrong turn or whatever. And then people like to see that kind of, I guess, the redemption, story.
Yeah, most redemption arcs are fallen hero, like David, top of the world, sleeps with Bathsheba, kills Uriah, God smacks him. He says, I messed up. Done. Paul's is uglier. No peak, just a straight downhill sprint, persecuting, breathing murder, approving stones. No moment of glory first, just evil. Then, bam, light. That's rarer. Buddha, prince gives it all up, still noble. Augustus, power-hungry kid becomes emperor, but he never hunts people down. Paul's the villain who doesn't stay the villain. And we love that, because it proves even if your life's garbage,
You know
you can
who
still get.
I was thinking Aquinas? Is it? No, not Thomas. Like, who's the other theologian? It was, who's the other big theologian in the West? Aquinas, and then,
Augustine, he's the other one. Started as a wild kid, sex, Manichaeism, theft. Wrote Confessions, basically Paul's story, but Roman edition. I was bound, not with another's ropes, but by my own iron chain. Then grace hit, like Paul, but with more tears.
right. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, so okay. Anyway, all right, let's continue line for line.
And Ananias went his way, and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him said, Brother Saul, the Lord, even Jesus, that appeared unto thee in the way, as thou camest, hath sent me, that thou mightest receive thy sight, and be filled with the Holy Ghost.
Summary.
Ananias walks in, lays hands on Saul, calls him brother, says Jesus sent him. Bam, eyes open, spirit fills him. Ready for 18.
References.
Acts 22:12-14. Paul repeats the scene almost word for word later, confirming every detail. Isaiah 61:1. Sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives. Ananias is the messenger. Acts 2:38. Receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. Same phrase Peter used at Pentecost. No magic, just fulfillment of prophecy. Ready for 18?
Line for line.
Acts 9, verse 18. And immediately there fell from his eyes, as it had been scales, and he received sight forthwith, and arose, and was baptized. Acts 9, verse 19. And when he had received meat, he was strengthened. Then was Saul certain days with the disciples, which were at Damascus.
Summary.
Eyes open, like scales fall off. He's baptized right away, eats, and hangs out with the same Christians he came to kill. Ready for 20.
Now, it's kind of interesting they use scales, because people like to reference the scales thing. So, and I mean, because obviously you might tie that back to a dragon, which you might tie back to a serpent, which you might tie back to Satan, right?
Yeah, it's not coincidence. The Greek word lepis means scale, like fish or reptile. The serpent in Eden, same word root. Paul, blinding light from heaven, suddenly sees, eyes shed scales. It's poetic. The guy who served the serpent gets the scales taken off by the light. Not symbolism forced, just fitting. Ready for 20?
Yeah, it's kind of like, so, yeah, because, yeah, he served the serpent, okay, and like the Leviathan, his scales, okay, I get it.
Yeah, that image. Dragon scales, sea monster, pride. Now off. Ready?
Okay,
Acts
wait,
9.
give me the references first.
Isaiah 11:12 shall gather together the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Isaiah 42:6 for a covenant of the people, for a light to the Gentiles. Isaiah 63 kings to the brightness of thy rising. Psalm 2:2 kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together. All that Saul will now face, he's already named. Ready?
Line for line.
Acts 9, verse 20. And straightway he preached Christ in the synagogues, that he is the Son of God. Acts 9, verse 21. But all that heard him were amazed, and said, Is not this he that destroyed them which called on this name in Jerusalem, and came hither for that intent, that he might bring them bound into the chief priests?
Yeah, you'd think that there would be some friends of Stephen around that wouldn't take lightly they'd be kind of pissed, right? I mean, you can't just kill a guy and then like, yeah, now I'm on your side, I mean.
Yeah. Imagine you watched your best friend get stoned. Then the ringleader shows up smiling, quoting Jesus. You'd spit. They'd want blood. And they don't buy it at first. Verse 21 says they were amazed, but amazed doesn't mean trusted. Means, are you kidding? Some probably waited years to believe him. Ready for 22? Acts 9,
give me
verse
references first.
Isaiah 53:7. Open not his mouth, like Jesus before Pilate. Isaiah 52:14. His visage was marred more than any man. Humiliation. Psalm 16:10. Neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. Resurrection. All that Paul will now unpack in synagogues. He's not improvising, he's quoting. Ready for 22?
Line for line.
Acts 9, verse 22. But Saul increased the more in strength, and confounded the Jews which dwelt at Damascus, proving that this is very Christ.
Summary.
Paul gets better and better at this. He's stronger, sharper, and he starts proving, using scripture, that Jesus is the Messiah. They can't answer him. Ready for 23.
Yeah, so once the people start seeing the guy's skills, it's going to be hard to argue with him because he's the quite talented scholar, correct?
Yeah, he knows their game, their books, their tricks. He's not some wild-eyed convert shouting. He's the Pharisee who memorized Moses, who argued with the rabbis since he was 12, who knows every comma in Isaiah. So when he stands up and says, this is him, chapter 53, line 3, fit, they can't say you're ignorant. They have to say you're wrong. But he has the verses, and they don't. Ready
so
for
it's kind of interesting that it seems like it plays out all the time, that you kind of need, like, when there's a clash between different peoples and whatnot, a lot of time you kind of need some information from the group, from the other group. Like, like, I mean, like you've got, like the group that the Sadducees are over here, they're really kind of smart and whatnot. But then you kind of need, like, obviously Paul, who's maybe not a Sadducee, but he's definitely a scholar and whatnot, to be able to show other people, like, exactly how to deal, how exactly to deal with these other group of people, right? He knows how they work. And like later on you have that kind of situation. It kind of seems like, for example, like England was being attacked by the Vikings and whatnot, and so on. And I guess so. I'm not an expert on all this, but it just seems like then you kind of need sometimes some of those guys to like show you what they're thinking or whatever, or to help you out with the tactics, so that you could so that you can then you have some of that information, or not just intel, but actually, like, you need them to reinvigorate what you're doing, or possibly to reinforce it. And the same thing seems to happen, like, I don't know what, like the other thing, even with the church, obviously the church needed to kind of grow. So these Gentiles came in, and who would have been thought of as a threat before, possibly, but now you kind of need that to grow, right? You need that different, I don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. You can't win a war without spies, right? Or better, without converts. Paul isn't just intel, he's a defector with a map. He doesn't just tell Christians what Sadducees are planning. He tells them why they believe it, how to argue it, how to beat it. And it's the same pattern forever. Vikings raid England. Alfred the Great doesn't just fight. He learns Norse, hires Danes, turns the wolf into a sheepdog. Same with Rome. Christians weren't outsiders forever. They were Romans who'd read Virgil, loved gladiators, ate garlic bread. And when the emperor converts, boom, church explodes. You don't grow by staying pure. You grow by letting the enemy in, letting him see the light, letting him bring his friends. Because the strongest converts aren't the weak. They're the ones who used to kill you. Ready for 23.
Yeah, because it's the one that says, hey, look, it's like the Viking that comes over and says, yeah, dude, these guys are bloodthirsty killers over here. You gotta, I'm gonna help you out, I think they're wrong on this. These guys at this group that right here is wrong in what they're doing. But I know, but I'm gonna show you kind of how they're basically doing that, right? So you need that convert, I guess. Yeah, obviously for the information, but it's also those guys, can help you understand. Yeah.
Yeah, the insider who flips isn't just useful, he's proof. Like the Viking who swims across, says, I've seen the gods you're scared of. They're just men in helmets. And you believe him, because he's got the scars. That's Paul, not some outsider yelling. He's the guy who held the coats. Now he's holding your hand. Ready? Acts 9, verse 23. And after that many days were fulfilled, the Jews took counsel together to kill him. Acts 9, verse 24. But their laying await was known of Saul, and they watched the gates day and night to kill him.
Summary.
The Jews in Damascus plot to assassinate Paul. Watch the gates 24/7. But he's already one step ahead. Ready for 25?
Hold on a second. Continue.
Acts 9, verse 25. Then the disciples took him by night and let him down by the wall in a basket.
Summary.
Paul sneaks out of Damascus, basket on a rope, over the wall, like some ancient ninja. The disciples help him escape. Ready for 26?
References.
Joshua 2:6. Rahab lets spies down the wall with rope. 2 Corinthians 11:33. Paul himself repeats, through a window in a basket was I let down by the wall. Same scene, same escape. Only now he's the spy, not the hunter. Ready for 26?
Yeah, line for line.
Acts 9, verse 26. And when Saul was come to Jerusalem, he essayed to join himself to the disciples, but they were all afraid of him, not believing that he was a disciple. Acts 9, verse 27. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles, and declared unto them how he had seen the Lord in the way, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Jesus.
Summary.
Paul shows up in Jerusalem. The Christians won't touch him. They think it's a trap. Barnabas steps in, vouches. He's real. He saw Jesus. He's been preaching. Now they let him in. Ready for 28.
It's funny, like you hear this story so many times that you kind of don't really think about the details. So it's like, yeah, obviously they would be a little bit, you'd have to convince them pretty much to believe him there, because looking back on it, you're like, well, of course it's Paul, for crying out loud. Of course they would have believed, because obviously you're looking back after knowing the rest of the narrative.
Yeah, that's the thing. We think Paul the apostle, so of course they trusted him. But to them, he's Saul, the butcher. You don't forget the face that held the stones. Barnabas isn't just nice, he's brave. And Paul's probably shaking. Please, I swear, I'm not undercover. Humble. Ready for 28.
Yeah, let's continue. Line for line.
Acts 9, verse 28. And he was with them, coming in and going out at Jerusalem. Acts 9, verse 29. And he spake boldly in the name of the Lord Jesus, and disputed against the Grecians, but they went about to slay him.
Summary.
Paul hangs with the believers, preaches strong, but the Greek-speaking Jews plot to kill him too. Same pattern. Ready for 30?
So the Greek-speaking Jews are... So when you say the Greek-speaking Jews, are you talking about the ones that are kind of like on the side of the Sadducees, or like, what do you mean by that?
Not exactly Sadducees. No, Sadducees were the temple crowd, Hebrew only, rich. These are Hellenists, Jews who grew up in cities like Antioch or Alexandria, spoke Greek, read the Septuagint, loved philosophy, argued like lawyers. Not elites, middle class, sharp, loud. And in Jerusalem, they're the ones who think Paul's the worst traitor, a Pharisee who went full Gentile lover. So yeah, not Sadducees. These are the guys who'd read Plato and Isaiah, smart enough to hate him more. Ready for 30?
So that's interesting. So, okay, let's continue.
Acts 9, verse 30. But when the brethren knew it, they brought him down to Caesarea and sent him forth to Tarsus.
Summary.
The Christians whisk Paul out of Jerusalem, ship him to Tarsus, his hometown, out of sight, out of danger, for now.
Okay, references.
Acts 8:40. Caesarea is already the escape port. Philip ended up there. Acts 11:25. Later, Barnabas hunts Paul in Tarsus, found him. Acts 21:39. Paul himself confirms, Tarsus, a city in Cilicia. Acts 22:3. Brought up in the city at the feet of Gamaliel. It's not random. Sending him home is like saying, go recover. We'll call when it's safe. Ready for 31.
Yeah, line for line.
Acts 9, verse 31. Then had the churches rest throughout all Judea and Galilee and Samaria, and were edified, and walking in the fear of the Lord and in the comfort of the Holy Ghost were multiplied.
Summary.
The churches chill, no more beatdowns. Peace spreads. Judea, Galilee, Samaria. They grow, strong, scared of God, comforted by the Spirit. Ready for 32.
Yeah.
Acts 9, verse 32. And it came to pass, as Peter passed throughout all quarters, he came down also to the saints which dwelt at Lydda.
Summary.
Peter heads down to Lydda, checks on the believers there. Quiet ministry. Ready for 33.
So now we're bouncing back from Paul to Peter.
Yep, just like a movie cuts. Paul's off screen, healing. Peter's still on the ground, doing the everyday stuff.
So if we map this out, where are they now? So Paul compared to Peter and compared to the temple.
Peter's maybe 30 miles northwest of Jerusalem. Lydda's right by the old road to Joppa. Paul's way north, 3 days by boat, maybe a week's walk, from Jerusalem, up in Tarsus. Temple, it's still standing, still busy, still rejecting them both.
So what and who's actually, is there a central plan that's mapping them both out, or is it just like God's the one directing each of them without the other's knowledge?
Yeah, no central planner, No war room, no whiteboard. God's running 2 stories at once. Peter's on foot, healing, staying local. Jerusalem to Lydda, Joppa. Paul's off the map. Damascus, Tarsus, out of touch for years. They don't even email. But later Paul says in Galatians, I went away for 14 years. So no coordination. Just 2 guys listening. One's still talking temple, synagogue, Jew first. One's already Gentile bound, doesn't even know it yet. Same God, different lanes.
So this
Ready?
is it's interesting because they're both just doing their own thing and following their own path, and the path they're both being sent on is going to be to expand and then eventually pull in Gentiles.
Yeah, but Peter's still Jew-focused. Go to Joppa, heal a woman, raise her, local, visible. Paul sent to Tarsus, the edge of the empire, Greek culture, Roman roads. Peter's path opens doors inside. Paul's path builds the highway outside. They don't know it yet, but Peter's showing Gentiles they can come in. Paul will say, let's go out. Same goal, different
So that's
gates.
kind of interesting. So Peter, and that makes sense because Peter he's not exactly. It's kind of funny because you would think the guy that might be actually convincing the local Jewish population would be Paul, because he's the guy that has the arguments that are aligned, you would think, towards scholars and whatnot. Whereas if he's going out to the Gentiles, once he goes beyond the scope of the Jews, then his arguments aren't going to be as effective of, oh, well, this is the fulfillment of it'd be like trying to argue against a Roman that this is fulfilling the prophecy of the Old Testament or something. And they would be like, I don't care, because you would think that Peter is like the fisherman. So you would think that he is maybe not quite as articulate as Paul. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you nailed it. Paul's the brain, the PhD who'd quote Isaiah in the marketplace and make a rabbi sweat. Peter's the gut, the guy who'd say, look, he raised my friend, came back from dead, come see. Paul argues prophecy, Peter argues sight. Gentiles don't care about Jewish scrolls. They care about power. Demons flee, lame walk. Peter's the demo, Paul's the dissertation. And ironically, Peter ends up in Rome, imperial heart, while Paul writes Romans. Swapped. But you're right. Paul's genius would have flopped on uncircumcised pagans who'd never heard Moses. They'd yawn. Peter just points. That dead guy, alive, believe. Simple. Ready for 33? Acts 9, verse 33. And there he found a certain man named Aeneas, which had kept his bed 8 years, and was sick of the palsy.
Summary.
Peter finds Aeneas, a paralytic, stuck in bed 8 years. Ready for 34?
So I guess if Peter's way to make the argument is to just keep on doing miracles, obviously that'll be a good argument.
Yeah, he doesn't quote Isaiah 35. He just says, Aeneas, get up. And Aeneas does. That's the argument. Miracles aren't proof to a scholar. They're proof to a skeptic. And Peter's playing to that crowd. Paul could talk for hours. Peter just acts. Ready? Acts 9, verse 34. And Peter said unto him, Aeneas, Jesus Christ maketh thee whole. Arise, and make thy bed. And he arose immediately.
Summary.
Peter tells Aeneas, Jesus is making you whole. Get up, make your bed. And he does. Instant miracle. Ready for next?
References.
Isaiah 35:5. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Then shall the lame man leap as an hart. Mark 2:11. Jesus to the paralytic. Arise, take up thy bed and walk. Acts 3:6. Peter to the temple lame man. In the name of Jesus, rise up. Same command, same power, no new trick, just repetition. Ready for 35?
Yes.
Acts 9, verse 35. And all that dwelt at Lydda and Saron saw him, and turned to the Lord.
Summary.
Everyone in Lydda and the whole region, Saron, sees Aeneas walking, fixes their eyes on Jesus, and converts. Instant mass turnaround. Ready for Joppa?
References.
Isaiah 35:2. They shall see the glory of the Lord and the excellency of our God. All that dwelt at Lydda and Saron saw him, echoes that. Psalm 72:16. There shall be a handful of corn in the earth, upon the top of the mountains. The fruit thereof shall shake like Lebanon. Saran, Sharon, was known for plains, fertility, and healing legends. Luke's calling back to that image. Barren land, now blooming with faith. Acts 19:26. Same phrase, they all turned. Luke likes that wording. Ready for 36?
Yes, please. Line for line.
Acts 9, verse 36. Now there was at Joppa a certain disciple named Tabitha, which by interpretation is called Dorcas. This woman was full of good works and alms deeds, which she did. Acts 9, verse 37. And it came to pass in those days that she was sick and died, whom when they had washed, they laid her in an upper chamber. Acts 9, verse 38. And forasmuch as Lydda was nigh to Joppa, and the disciples had heard that Peter was there, they sent unto him 2 men, desiring him that he would not delay to come to them. Acts 9, verse 39. Then Peter arose and went with them. When he was come, they brought him into the upper chamber, and all the widows stood by him weeping, and showing the coats and garments which Dorcas made while she was with them.
Yeah, it's funny that they call Dorcas is the name. Does that, like, in the common idiom of English, they have a word called dork or Dorcas? Is that somehow derived from here, or is that just a coincidence?
Nah, Dorcas means gazelle in Aramaic. Beautiful, gentle. Dork is just Old Norse for worm, later slang for klutz. No link, just sounds funny. Ready for 40?
Okay. Now give me the summary before you go.
Dorcas, seamstress, saint, dies. Widows cry, show off the clothes she sewed for them. They beg Peter, come quick. He drops everything, heads over. The room's full of grief, fabrics, and hope. Ready when you are.
Give me references.
Isaiah 11:6. The wolf lies with the lamb, leopard with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. Dorcas as gazelle, harmless, pure. Exodus 28. Priest's garments, detailed sewing. Skill of needlework is holy work. 1 Kings 17:17, 24. Elijah raises the widow's son. Exact parallel. Prophet arrives, takes the dead one upstairs. Praise, brings back. Mark 5:35, 43. Jesus raises Jairus' daughter. Same room, same privacy, same command. Luke uses these echoes on purpose. Peter isn't improvising. He's reliving. Ready?
Now, okay, yeah, let's continue.
Acts 9, verse 40. But Peter put them all forth, and kneeled down and prayed, and turning him to the body said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. Acts 9, verse 41. And he gave her his hand, and lifted her up, and when he had called the saints and widows, presented her alive. Acts 9, verse 42. And it was known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in the Lord.
Summary.
Peter clears the room, prays, calls her name. She sits up, hands her to the crowd. Everyone sees. Word spreads. Joppa flips. Mass belief. Ready for 43?
Is Tabitha a Jewish name, or is that Greek?
Tabitha is Aramaic, means gazelle, totally Jewish. Dorcas is just the Greek translation, since the story's written in Greek. She was a local woman, Hebrew speaker, sewing for widows, classic first-century Jewish charity work. Nothing foreign. Ready to finish 9?
Give me references.
Isaiah 26:19. Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Ezekiel 37:10. Breath entered into them, and they stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army. Mark 5:41. Jesus says,
when Isaiah is talking about dead men shall live and all that stuff, is he like what is his exact point in time that he's referring to, when the Messiah comes back, or like judgment, the end of days, like
Yeah, Isaiah's not giving a calendar. Isaiah 26 is smack in the middle of a funeral psalm. Israel's crushed, bodies in the dirt, nations laughing. He says, your dead shall live. The earth shall cast out the dead. It's raw hope. Even if we rot, God wins. Later rabbis said Messiah time. Christians say Jesus already started it. Raised, but the full party's end of days.
So
Peter,
he's not really specific. He's just saying vengeance will be had and then interpretations were then said, well, that's going to be the Messiah, and then they said, well, that's going to be the ends of times, that'll be judgment, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Isaiah's not a timetable guy. He's screaming through tears. We die like dogs, but God remembers. Not when, just will. Later rabbis said, ah, that's Messiah. Christians said, no, it's already cracking open. Peter just proved it. End times folks say, half done, finish lines later. All true-ish. But the verse wasn't written for calendars. It was written for widows who lost everything. Ready?
So this is really where we get into like a lot of the confusion, obviously, because now we have these, we're saying prophecies that were said possibly halfway out of anguish, and then now we're arguing what even the prophecy would mean, even if it was true, right? You're like, okay, well, maybe that is a fulfillment. What does that even mean? And then different people are arguing what it means because it wasn't even said what it meant well, that means the Messiah is coming. That means the end of times. That just means revenge is upon us. We will have vengeance, or,
Yeah, that's the mess. Prophets weren't PowerPoint guys. They were poets in pain. Isaiah's not saying, on Tuesday, year 33 AD, a guy will raise a woman in Joppa. He's yelling, God doesn't leave corpses lying. That's it. The meaning grows legs later. Jews said, Messiah comes, bones rattle, Israel restored. Christians said, bones rattled, first fruit is Jesus. Pre-mill folks say, second coming's the finale. None of them had the script, so now we fight over footnotes. But the original vibe, hope in hell. Ready? Acts 9, verse 43. And it came to pass that he tarried many days in Joppa with one Simon, a tanner.
Summary.
Peter stays in Joppa, at a tanner's house, which is weird. He shouldn't be there. It's unclean work. But he stays, hanging out, waiting, ready for chapter 10.
Yeah, the tanners had to like soften up the stuff with like urine or something. Wasn't that right? Or something like that. It wasn't clean business, no?
Yeah, dead animals, brains, urine, feces, stinks like hell. Total unclean job. Jews weren't allowed near tanners, but Peter stays anyway. Big deal. He's already letting Gentiles in. Now he's sleeping in filth. God's breaking rules, one by one. Ready for 10.
Definitely doesn't sound kosher. So what does a tanner do exactly?
Tanner skins dead animals, goats, sheep, scrapes the flesh off, soaks in lime to loosen hair, stretches on frames, scrapes again, dyes it, then stretches it over smoke, uses everything, brains, urine, salt, dung, whatever makes it soft and colored. It's a full body stink. And if the animal died of disease, still usable. That's why no rabbi wants to live next door. Peter staying there, it's like a Jew sleeping in a slaughterhouse. Ready? Acts
But
10,
you would think
verse 1.
that the Jews would like the product, right? I mean, are they against using the product of the tanner? I mean, because like you would think you wouldn't want to waste all the animal product, right? I mean,
Yeah, they use it. Leather sandals, belts, tents, water skins. Everybody needs it. The problem's not the stuff, it's the touch. If you touch a dead body or animal carcass, you're unclean. 7 days out of temple. Wash everything. Wait. And tanners? They're basically walking contamination. They smell. Their hands rot. Their kids play in scrap hide. So the rabbi said, do it. Just stay outside town. They'd buy the leather at arm's length. No handshakes. Peter staying there? It's not just dirty. It's deliberate. I'm done with that. Ready?
so it's more like because I get like I think we get kind of the wrong impression sometimes because it's more like the rabbis are going, look, we have this rule that I can't go into the church if I'm unclean, and if I touch a dead body or carcasses and whatnot, that makes me. But the uncleanness it's not like a sin really to be I mean, obviously you're unclean all the time. That happens, right? It's just like that's just a rule of the rabbis. I mean, so other people, it's not like you're necessarily looking down on someone for. Obviously, it's tough. People are going to look down on someone that has to deal with materials that are kind of gross or whatever. But someone. It's not like they're not saying someone's got to do the job. It's obviously just a separation of duties that the priest can't do the job because he can't go into the temple that way because that's what the rules are. Kind of is that.
Yeah, that's spot on. Uncleanness isn't sin. It's biology. Touch a corpse, bam, unclean. Touch a woman's period cloth, unclean. Touch a leper, unclean. It's not moral, it's ceremonial, like taking off muddy boots before dinner. The priest can't do it because he has to enter the holy place. The tanner can, but then he can't eat with the family for a week. So it's not tanners are bad people, it's tanners are contagious, kind of like quarantine. But yeah, everyone uses their work, just nobody wants them in the house.
See,
Peter
that
staying there.
quarantine is another thing that I think is a little bit wonky because it's like, well, why do you have all these rules? Like you can't do this, you can't do that. And one of the arguments is like you say, it's quarantine, which makes sense. I mean, obviously it would make sense that you would say, well, if you're around dead bodies, that would be a way of disease from a modern sense. We would say they probably knew that back then, possibly not technically, right? That it would spread disease, so you wouldn't want that. But other rules don't even make any sense, right? Like you can't eat, even the pit, you can't eat certain animals because they have webbed feet, or you can't eat a rabbit or something. Like everybody eats rabbit. Yeah, that doesn't make, so it's not like it doesn't seem like it's just they're rules just because that's what God said you had to follow. They don't, it's not like, some of them might make some sense, but a lot of them don't seem like they make any, that's what the rule is, I mean.
Yeah, it's messy. Some rules, like no pork, might have been hygiene. Pigs eat garbage, die fast, rot quick, carry tapeworms. Rabbits, same. Cute, but they breed disease. Web-footed birds, scavengers. Bottom feeders, dirty. But yeah, some are just there. Like don't wear wool and linen together, or don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Kind of sweet, but weird. And the scholars argue, is it about holiness, separating you from pagans, or identity? If everybody does the same dumb thing, you stick together. Or obedience. God says, because I said so. That's the kicker. Not every rule's practical. Some are just, trust me. And Peter staying at a tanner's, he's testing which rules matter. Turns out, none of them. Not if love's in play. Ready for Acts 10, verse 1.
And so now this comes into the part of the story where we're starting to think, as post Jesus, what are the rules now? Has anything changed, given the fact that you could think of as Jesus being the sacrifice, number one, and then number two, are the rules different possibly for Gentiles than for Jews, even if they're converted, or they're Jews that believe in the sect of the resurrection of Jesus, right? And Paul's clearly going to make it a little bit easier on the Gentiles so they don't have to, start cutting up their private parts as an adult, which I would think would be a little bit difficult, a little tough sell.
Yeah, that's the big fork. Up to now, Jewish Christians are still kosher, still circumcised, still Sabbath. No one's questioning it. But Gentiles, if you say welcome, but snip your foreskin first, guess how many show up? 0. Paul's like, no, faith only, no knives. And the sacrifice thing, Jesus already died. Temple blood, done. He's the lamb. So all those washings, rituals, optional. Love's the new law. Peter's about to learn that the hard way. Ready? Acts 10, verse 1.
So all of that is going to get worked out. It's kind of sloppy right now because we don't know what that means, right? So all of that has to get worked out, right? All those changes have to get worked out.
Yeah, it's chaos. No rule book yet. Peter's still kosher. Paul's in Tarsus, probably still praying in Hebrew. No one's called a council. No votes. Just spirit nudging, one guy at a time. Gentiles show up. Somebody says, wait, you're not clean? And Jesus' blood isn't on paper yet. So yeah, it's sloppy. On purpose. God doesn't drop answers. He drops people. And Cornelius? He's next. Ready? Acts 10, verse 1. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band. Acts 10, verse 2. A devout man, and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people, and prayed to God always.
Were they actually Italian? There was no Italian back then. It was Rome.
Yeah, Italian here just means Roman legion, specifically the cohors Italica. Not like pizza Italians, more like these are the guys from the home province. Rome recruited locals first, so the Italian band was probably full of Italians from the boot, Latin speakers, pagan by birth, but Cornelius flipped. Still a soldier, still foreign, but praying to Israel's God. Ready for 3? Acts 10, verse 3.
Give me the sum. Yeah, well, give me references.
Isaiah 65:1. I was found of them that sought me not. Exactly this. Cornelius isn't Jewish, didn't sign up, but God shows up. Daniel 6:10. Daniel prays toward Jerusalem 3 times a day. Same rhythm. 9th hour, 3 p.m. was the big prayer. Acts 8:27. Ethiopian eunuch also prayed to God always. Luke's pattern. God lovers outside Israel get visions. Luke 21:38. All the people came early to hear him. Same always vibe. Constant devotion. No accident. Cornelius is the Gentile Daniel. Ready?
Yeah, line for line.
We're on Acts chapter 10, verse 3. Angel calls Cornelius by name. Next line, Peter gets the vision on the roof. Pick it up there. Night accounting.